Hello and welcome to another episode of the Kipper stream. Today we're going to be talking about Tommy Robinson's case. He's just been sentenced today. Looks like he's going to be going down for 2 months in prison, which obviously isn't going to be fun for him. But before we move on to that, I wanted to quickly talk and update you all about the situation with the NEC blocking Gerard from standing. As you're all aware, for those who watched the previous stream, there was a legal fund which was set up, which is going to go against the NEC. It's raised over £5,000, which is phenomenal. And basically, what's happened now is legal letters have been sent to each of the members of the NEC. If they don't reply, there will be an injunction put against them. So it's looking serious now. And from what I hear, we have a pretty damn good case. So if I was the NEC, I'd be shitting myself right now. So yeah, good luck, NEC. See what you can throw at us, because we got the big guns ready to go for you. But we're not here to talk about that today. So we're going to talk about Tommy. So Matthew, can you give us some details about the Tommy case?
Well, he's been charged with contempt of court, which everyone probably knows. 19 months, but he'll probably serve 9. And he's got that 19 months because his previous sentence has been taken into account. The last 2 times that contempt of court has come up for journalists was the Daily Mirror and the Daily Mail in 2011 and 2014. No one served any prison time for that. The maximum penalty would have been 2 years in prison. Obviously, they gave him 9 months, and the minimum penalty and another penalty that they could have given was unlimited fine. The reporting around the case has been a bit jagged, and the arguments as to why he's been charged with contempt of court are not fully all that straightforward.
Well, as far as I understand, the charges are that he was causing harassment to these Muslim paedophiles. And I'm not sure if did they still carry the charge forward that he would unfairly be influencing.
Yes, that was the main argument of the head barrister. She said you'd be unfairly influencing the trial, according to the BBC. And the other thing you'll be doing is she accused him of whipping up vigilantism. So obviously, next time he does it, he needs to dress up as a giant bat, or something along those lines. Yeah, it's. I mean, this is a bit like the other time where he got accused of soliciting vigilantism against ISIS, apparent ISIS members.
He had an England flag which said "fuck ISIS" written on it, right?
Or something like that. And I mean, it's very strange. The whole thing's very strange, because one minute Tommy Robinson is this dedicated, intelligent actor. This is what they're trying to get you to believe. Who knows exactly what he's doing, and he's whipping up, and he's wealthy and this kind of business. And the next minute, he's an idiot who just blindly says things. But there never seems to be any charge against these things that he blindly says, or evidence of him saying them, which is interesting.
I've been busy at work, but I've been listening to both LBC and Talk Radio talk a little bit about Tommy, and literally every presenter on there is basically saying, "Oh, well, he's an idiot. He didn't follow the rules." And basically, no, this isn't a matter of journalism. This is him just being an idiot who doesn't follow the rules. He's a far-right racist. And it's like, okay, we know where the media stands here.
Well, something I found interesting was that apparently when he was filming, the jury were inside a room deliberating, which begs the question, well, if he's live streaming and that's what's influenced the trial, should the jury really have access to what he's doing inside the deliberation room or inside the trial? If this is about influencing cases, I mean, I've never been part of a
Sorry, I
trial.
don't quite understand, because he was filming from outside the courthouse.
Yeah, but the argument is that he was influencing them inside this room. That's what the BBC seemed to infer on their article about it. And yeah, that was the argument. Was basically it was a second trial, and he was influencing it by recording outside because the jurors were deliberating inside. And I don't. So if he's influencing, that means they must have some way to watch him outside. So unless they've not reported something, like he was stood right in front of a bloody great window and the jury were there, which I can't imagine. That would be an interesting social experiment.
And they'd already made their judgment. They were just going to go back in to have their sentences handed down to them. So the argument,
okay, yeah.
The argument of him being, what'd you say, prejudicing the trial? I don't know what the word is.
Yeah.
Prejudicing the trial is kind of bollocks, really, because they already made their decision. And also everything which he said and read out, which they tried to get him on previously, I don't know if they tried to get him on here again, was already in the public domain. So the argument that he was reading out vital information,
but I mean,
if it's already in the public domain, it doesn't qualify, as far as I'm aware of how the law works.
Yeah, I mean, also with regards to the reporting restrictions, the reporting restrictions need to be shown on the courtroom screen. Now, apparently Tommy entered the court to check if there were any reporting restrictions present on that day, and there was nothing on the screen, which Tommy has apparently submitted in his evidence. Now, oddly enough, the court doesn't have the CCTV footage to prove that Tommy wasn't in the court that day. I mean, it would be quite trivial for them just to produce that evidence and say, there you go, there's the entire day's footage, and he was never in court. But that appears to be missing, or they don't seem to have that piece of evidence.
Yeah, I believe the law is that for him to be prejudicing, I can't fucking say that. For him to be prejudicing the trial, that the information of him, for him not to be able to speak has to be published both in the court and also online. And it definitely wasn't online.
Yeah.
But there is an argument, I believe, that he could have gone into like the court office, but I'm not quite sure if that information was even available there. So that's one argument against him there, but I'm not sure if that really holds up, because it should have been online as well, even if that was the case that it was in the office. I
mean, this just kind of open up a big can of worms though around prejudicing of trials, particularly rape trials or any kind of sexual offence trial, because I mean, when these people were arrested, I'm pretty sure it was put in the media. I'm pretty sure people would have commented.
Well, there's the large movement at the moment, you know, with regards to the rape victims having anonymity.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen that, and there's quite a few celebrities that have called for that. And an obvious case is, you know, Sir Cliff Richard. There were helicopters flying around his house, and nobody from the BBC has been brought to account for that. And you know, talk about prejudicing a trial. This was BBC mainstream, put out to all the BBC viewers. So,
I mean, yeah, because I mean,
I have to interject there. Didn't he end up suing the BBC?
He did, yeah.
He did, yeah. And he won.
But there were cases with what's the animal? No, the guy who paints the TV. Rolf Harris, yeah. If that's what Tommy used as an example. If you saw Rolf Harris's trial, literally like hundreds of cameras all around him, going in and out of the court.
Yeah, I mean, I find this very, very interesting that these prejudice laws weren't being applied unilaterally. I mean, because surely they should have been applied here. I mean, because his argument was that the media had boycotted it, and that there was some, or his argument wasn't, but one of the arguments I've heard is that, you know, it's a big cover-up. And that one of the arguments that he has for his channel and such is that he needs to bring out these stories. Now, if there was unilateral prejudice restrictions across all cases of sexual offence, not just these Islamic grooming gangs ones, or all cases, then he couldn't make that argument, could he? Like, that would be something that the legal barristers could look at fixing, but instead they haven't decided to do that, and I find that quite strange.
Well, like you mentioned earlier, I think he's, if not the only, one of the very few to actually go to prison for this charge of.
He's the first one since 1940.
1940. There you go.
Is my understanding. First one since 1940. The Mirror and the Mail. No one went to prison. It's very the people who are behind these things. And by the way, if in case this goes big and they're watching, while you're at it, do intellectual property law as well. But yeah, they really need to look at these prejudice laws, because I mean it's such uneasy ground. I don't. I mean, I'm not surprised really that the Mail and the Mirror broke the ground as well, because there's this press freedom idea, but then of course there is individual liberty kind of arguments, but it needs to be unilateral. You can't just have one rule for one trial and then have completely different, well, this trial's not as important, or these people aren't as famous, or these people are more famous. This can't really, because Marcus Meacham was saying when he was arrested that the Scottish papers were basically outside his front door. And I mean, surely showing someone in handcuffs, most people have a good opinion of the police, which is kind of concerning when you think about it, because they kind of think, well, if the police arrest someone, they must be guilty. It was a bit like that guy who was accused of being a bit strange around. Do you remember there was that woman who disappeared? I think down in Cornwall. They ITV made a show about this, and back then they were talking about prejudicing. And I really think that these prejudicing restrictions, they should be unilateral. And I don't think that it was. I mean, it just seems very, very interesting that these people were given these protections against reporting when so many others don't seem to have had it. And I don't understand the legal distinction between Rolf Harris having cameras in his face, or whoever else, Marcus Meacham, or whoever else, anyone, and these Pakistani or these individuals.
Basically, you're questioning what makes a legal case have reporting restrictions or not have reporting restrictions. What qualifies because to be the case?
Yeah, because there's a deliberate. I mean, because if you're saying, well, we're only going to report what's in the public interest, well, then you've lost your press freedom immediately, because the press put it out, and if it's in the public interest, it is. Well, if
it's open to interpretation, essentially.
Yeah,
it's open to interpretation.
I mean, the reason they said they had reporting restrictions in this case was because it was highly, it was highly volatile. It's a highly volatile case. It could have, apparently, he could have blown the whole thing. And I think, well, I mean, surely when they were arrested, it must have been reported. I can't imagine that it wasn't reported when they were arrested, because, I mean, how else would he have known about it?
It was definitely. It was definitely reported. Like we were saying, it was on the BBC.
I mean, surely at that point you've already prejudiced the case.
Exactly.
Like these prejudice laws don't make. I mean, I know we're going slightly sideways on Tommy on Tommy here, but this doesn't make sense. Like on a fundamental level,
I think
it doesn't make any sense.
I think if we were to compile all of the cases countrywide with reporting restrictions on them, and then we were to look at all of the defendants for those cases, I think it becomes quite apparent the pattern to the reporting restrictions on the sort of cases that are being restricted on the reporting, you know.
By the way, I've been reading some of the YouTube comments, and Jake just told me, look at your hair, you should have a shower. I would like to point out that I have actually just had a shower, so that's why my hair is like that. So shut your mooey, okay? Carry on.
Yeah, so I mean, Tommy's now he's in Belmarsh prison. It's maximum security. There's two arguments as to why that's been done. There's one argument that says so he'll probably be in solitary because there will be. I mean, the prisons are disproportionate now. As
well,
to
I'll tell you the question.
Demographic makeup.
The question I was going to ask you, Matthew, is what is the religious makeup of Belmarsh? Because I'd be curious to know that.
I don't. I only know the UK generally, but
I have a feeling it's going to be packed full of Muslims.
Well, I don't want to say that because I have no evidence of that. But it would not be a shock when you look at the national statistics. So he'll be in solitary. But I mean, the big question is they've given him 9 weeks. Okay, what actually happens if he does get killed? Like, because I mean, the British government, they must know something about this because they tried to get in front of it. And I can understand why from a security point of view, to some extent. They have tried to get in front of this. Like, they've written a nice thing on their website, and they've clearly thought about how they're going to respond. Like lots of people in the government have sat in an office and they're like, okay, we need to respond to this in some way, because either they legitimately believe that Tommy Robinson's got a bunch of far-right supporters who are going to overthrow the government and all this kind of business, or they think that there could be an Islamic backlash, or well, I can't be inside their head. In fact, you never know with these people exactly what they're trying to do. But they've given him 9 weeks in prison, and if he does get killed, what happens? Like, they clearly have not thought this through, because they've effectively turned. I mean, I feel slightly sorry for the judge, because in her in her mind, she's probably thinking, well, if I put him in prison, I turn him into a martyr. But if I don't put him in prison, he can then go and do this again. But
it's only 2 months.
You know, when you look at what he did, surely if you had any intelligence, well, no, no. But surely if you were thinking about this, you would think, well, I just won't put him in prison at all. Like, that would be where you would go. You would go. I mean, because he's like, a lot of what he does is based on his wealth. So you would just go, well, I'm going to give you a big fine, and then we're done. Well, then he's not a martyr. Yeah. But you know,
the thing is, sorry, let me just cut in there, Matthew, quickly. The thing is, because of this trial, Tommy's name has been plastered all over the mainstream media. I was actually quite surprised to hear it on all the radio stations. I thought they'd be like, oh, we'll just do a quick comment. Basically, that far right hooligan Tommy Robinson has gone to prison. Yeah. Anyway, on to the weather. They've actually put a lot of attention on him. And the thing is, a lot of people will watch these, and then they'll go to Tommy's online video stuff, and they'll actually know and learn more about Tommy, and hopefully follow his Telegram channel while they're at it.
Well, remember, guys, as well, there is almost a fine because he has to cover his own legal costs, and that is a significant cost.
It was 25k plus his legal costs, but basically, what they could have done much work. I mean, I'm glad they. Well, I don't know how I feel about this really, because really, I think he got arrested for a failed bureaucracy to start with. Let me put it that way. It was a failed bureaucracy to start with, and then he got arrested for kind of a bit of a crime, but not really. And then they responded the worst possible way they could have, really, if they genuinely believe this. But because they've responded this way, I basically think that this might be an attempt at assassination. I mean, you've got to float the idea that that's really what this is, because the kind of the thinking of how to deal with Tommy Robinson, if you were not trying to assassinate him, would be, well, just give him a big fine and then and then because then he doesn't get the media coverage, then he doesn't get the kind of the martyrdom of it. Because if he survives and he comes out, well, he's just, it's enemy of the state again, enemy of the state part
Yeah,
two.
but let's remember that obviously the justice system is separate to political system, and the person bringing the case forward was Geoffrey Cox, who's lawyer for Parliament for the Conservatives. And so they were probably thinking, well, let's make an example of him. Let's make this guy who's talking about Islam, let's punish him in the most way possible and say, look at him. This is what happens when you talk about Islam, you talk about grooming gangs, you're going to get punished. So don't even go there, mate. I think that's probably the line of thinking they were saying, because if they could control the justice system, and to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if they do have their fucking tentacles in the justice system as well. They would just give him a big fine, like you say. But I think they're just seeing whatever they can throw at him, whatever sticks, fine, make an example of him.
Yeah.
But you're right, if he does get killed, he'll definitely become a martyr.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised if there were terrorist attacks for people who support him. And these aren't people which Tommy Robinson would align with whatsoever. But there's such a boiling point now of people which are absolutely pissed off.
I was thinking about this earlier, right? And there's this cult there's this silent cult in this country and in the Western world, and I've got to go slightly on a tangent now because
Okay, don't make it too long, Mike. Sorry, Matthew, because I know your tangents can go on a little bit.
So when you calculate the GDP figures for a country, okay, you include spending on prisons, you include spending on police, you include spending on cleaning up pollution, right? So that means that if you're in government, you actually have quite a good motive to arrest people for basically nothing, because a lot of companies invest in nations based on GDP figures. So a way to well,
let's not forget that Theresa May's husband is has a big stake in a big security company which runs a lot of prisons. I've forgotten the name of the security company. I don't know if you can enlighten me.
Was it C4S or something? Or
yes,
something?
That's the what G4S. Yes.
Yeah.
Theresa May's husband, he either owns it or owns like a massive stake in it. So
this should be worrying. Like I sometimes wonder where the leftists and where the liberals actually are, because I consider myself a liberal, right? And if you really, really don't want private corporations running prisons, that just seems like a really basic thing to state, or it should be for Northern European countries. It's a bit like hospitals. We really don't want private corporations running them, but they are, right? And that's really, I mean, that opens up a big can of worms in itself. And the legal system of this country, it's very, very concerning. It's very, very concerning that this has been allowed to happen. And well, first thing, renationalise the legal system. That I think even I can get the Conservatives on board with that one. Maybe some of the true Conservatives, because
you won't get the Tory Conservatives, because they're neoliberals these days who will literally just privatise anything because that's what they believe in. Free market economics, baby.
The tangent I was going off on there was basically, I think a lot of this arrests for saying things online and arrests for possession of marijuana and Marcus Meacham and all this kind of crap is basically to rig the GDP figures. I sometimes wonder if it is. What
do you mean when you say that, though? Because
because it counts as it counts towards the GDP figures, right? So if you
you're saying they're trying to seek more arrests to make more money?
They're trying to do it so that they can, because it's always soft crime as well. It's not like they're trying to.
I see, because
they're not trying to encourage arrests for massive arms smugglers in any real big way. In fact, a lot of detectives are struggling. Right, a lot of police forces where they actually need the funding.
It's not the the justice system, which is privatized, though it's the prison system. So unless you're saying,
well, no, because that I mean, there's no way that those two things aren't interlinked.
well,
Law and
you
order
mean
are effectively the same thing, and
you are making an interesting point there, but I'm not sure if I can
if you can
go
back
down
it,
that road too much. It's a bit Alex Jonesy for me at the moment.
but
maybe you'll sell it to me one day. But
no, I mean, I just don't trust it. I really don't trust it. That's but as I was saying about the Tommy trial, like these laws around prejudicing and basically the laws need to be looked at in a big way.
Well, did you know that in America they don't have reporting restrictions like this at all?
Yeah, because it would be a breach of the First Amendment.
Exactly, and that's what we need. That's what we need in this country: a bloody First Amendment and a constitution which guarantees certain freedoms.
Well, the trouble
and if
is,
we can get back the guns as well, we'll get them. So
the trouble is, in terms of justice, I would actually really support an absolute blackout on reporting of any trial until it's until it's finished, right?
No, but the problem with that is, that leaves room for corrupt judges and things like that, and so I wouldn't support that.
Well, really. It's such a difficult one because you do prejudice. I mean, I've seen this in America where I remember watching this program about this young black lad. He wasn't anywhere near where the crime was committed. And by the way, I don't want to get into that whole argument about crime in America and its relation to race and all this kind of business. I'm talking about one case where there was this young black lad who was nowhere near the scene and all this kind of business. And then the reports, they started reporting on him, and they basically reported stuff that was false. But he was poor, right? He was poor, and he was a bit. Actually, one of the reasons that he was doing well at school or college or wherever he was because he was a bit odd as well. Like he would stay home and play video games as opposed to associating in the normally quite resource sparse communities around his home. And basically, it was trial by media, and he could have ended up getting the electric chair. And I can't remember how it actually resolved. But once you stick someone like that, and so this trial by media really does lack any nuance because sensation sells, and so it's a really, really difficult one. It really is. I don't know how I feel. I understand now what you're saying about corrupt judges. That is interesting. I mean.
For me, the answer is always more freedom of speech and get it out in the open because, we may have, this case with Tommy Robinson is obviously a case which does not give you hope in the justice system whatsoever, at least with me. But on the whole, the justice system isn't actually that terrible, but I can imagine in the future it getting more worse, and I would put things like reporting restrictions as ensuring that they can make it worse without getting found out about it. So that's why I would be in favor of doing what America does and just having no reporting restrictions.
But
I understand the argument you're making about the media ginning things up to result in certain favor, but I think ultimately more free speech would actually cure that better than less.
But I really don't know how I feel because it is deeply connected into our economic situation, and basically what we have at the moment is a vengeance economy. I mean, you look at some of these cases. I can't remember. I think the guy who actually didn't do it. Let's go for one who I think was found innocent. I think it was Freddie Starr. When that was brought up, like everyone went in on him. All of the press, everyone went against him because whether they were right-wing press, whether they were left-wing press, everyone went in on him, and there was lots and lots of people, basically in the comments everywhere it was basically saying, "Fucking pedo bastard" or something, or "fucking sex offender bastard." I'd fucking hang him, all this kind of business. And this kind of vengeance, I mean, there's no way that wouldn't prejudice a trial, by the way. Absolutely no way. maybe that's something to think about. But you know, this kind of vengeance economy isn't very good. I don't think it's very. It's kind of like, well, you know, I mean, I see this a lot with people who are particularly in favour of. Particularly in favour of anti-drug possession, right? That's something that I just don't. That's something I just don't think is.
Let's not go down the drug path just yet. But
yeah, okay.
let's play devil's advocate with you there, right? So what if I was to say, according to your logic there, that these newspapers and media can really influence a trial in a way which wouldn't be beneficial? So what if I were to say, well, that's why these rules with what happened with Tommy Robinson with the reporting restrictions are absolutely needed, and that's why they're in place. What would you say to
that? Because they weren't, but they weren't really in place. Like that's the thing. Like all of the bits before that, I'm pretty sure when they were arrested, it was reported, so they influenced the trial.
So the process wasn't followed correctly. That's your argument. Well,
basically, it's prejudiced as soon as anyone in the public anywhere knows there's a trial. It's outside of because basically what you need to do really is get some, because I think they asked jurors like, oh, have you seen anything about the trial? Well, who knows that they won't just lie. Like I mean, like the only way you're going to do it basically is to arrest people for things. To not really tell anyone, or to have like a reporting restriction on it, but then again, of course, that doesn't protect them. And I see what you say.
I mean, you seem to be making arguments for a Soviet Russia style of law. It seems quite terrifying. Let's block all reporting, do everything behind closed doors. I mean, you'd have to arrest the jurors as well.
No. But no,
you do make a good point, though.
I don't know what the answer is, but
I don't think it's possible to have any sort of trial without some sort of prejudice. There's always going to be prejudice in any trial. It's just a case of limiting as much as you can. I mean, just an example: the courts still have to put their they have to post daily who's in the court, what they're in the court for. So that information is always available. I think it's a case of sort of how it's reported on, the scale it's reported on. I mean, this thing today with Tommy has been all over all of the mainstream main home pages. Yet, not a number of weeks ago, there were 29 men locked up in West Yorkshire for grooming gangs that didn't even make the BBC main homepage. And which one has more import and relevance to the public? The prisoning of grooming gang convicts, or Tommy Robinson being in prison for contempt of court.
And going back to the process side of it, there's a lot of things fishy about this trial. Well, first of all, the original charges got chucked out by the highest court judge. So then they tried to charge him on different charges. And is this the same judge as last time? I don't think it is.
No, it's a different judge.
Yeah, it's a different. So they're like, oh, well, that judge didn't suit our purpose very well, so we'll move to another judge. And also, there was no jury on this trial. I think in America, every trial has a jury, as far as I'm aware. And we invented that. The Brits invented that hundreds of years ago, that having a jury on a trial. And for some reason, America gone, that's brilliant. We'll have a jury on every trial. But for us, we're like, nah, fuck it. We don't need juries anymore because we can handle that ourselves. So I don't know what's gone on there. And there's something about this woman judge that I just don't trust. I think that, what we were saying about politics, the private industry possibly influencing the justice system. I do actually feel there might be some political influence on this judge because, why couldn't it have been the same judge as before? Something is fishy going on here.
Out of interest, exactly what time was the verdict given back? Because I read this statistic. So there's a thing in psychology where they've now discovered that if the judge is hungry, i.e., it's before lunch, you're going to get a much
bad decision for you.
Sorry. Yeah.
He'll give a bad.
Yeah, you're going to get a much worse sentence because they misconstrue their hunger with anger or some other feeling.
Yeah. They just look at Tommy Robinson. He turns into a burger, like in Looney Tunes or something.
No.
Like, let me eat him.
No, I mean, this is. So this is. I've been thinking about all kinds of things now about the legal process that we could probably discuss here. And that is one of them. Basically, you could do a much lesser crime than the guy after lunch. But if you're the guy after lunch, the judge has had some food. So judges actually do quite often misunderstand their own internal feelings.
Yeah.
And maybe we should.
I've heard that about doctors as well. That they've studied that with doctors, that they don't treat you very well later in the day when they're tired.
Oh, and apparently that's the same with So there's apparently a perceptual bias towards women and heart disease as well with doctors.
And also, we can't, look away from the fact that maybe this woman might have been on her menopause. You never know.
Well, I wouldn't quite go that far, but oh God, Damien! I could just imagine he can appeal this, right? So do you know what? His barrister's going to look through this, and this is going to be one of these ridiculous trials where he's going to present a motion to the judge asking for menstrual cycles.
No, but in all seriousness, I believe this is very politically influenced. It's almost certain to me, because you do not see this treatment with other people of the same crime. He's the only person since 1940 something to go to jail, like you said. I have no doubt in my mind there's a political reasoning behind this, and he is a political prisoner in Britain in the 21st century. It's quite unbelievable. Yeah.
But, well, then again, it is quite interesting because, I mean, the newspapers didn't get anything like this, and I think that's because the journalists had the newspapers backing them. And I think there's this idea of, if there's this corporate entity, judges are a lot less likely to go after individuals working for that entity because they see shared distribution of action. Whereas,
but this is Geoffrey Cox, the government's lawyer, though. This is the government, isn't it? This isn't a private entity, is it?
Yeah. But this is what I'm saying. Like the government or any kind of prosecutorial body, I'm not convinced that when they see shared association action, they treat individuals as individuals. Whereas when they see an individual, or they treat individuals much more harshly than they do groups, because when they see groups, they kind of think, well, there's a lot of things at play here. But even if it was one journalist who belonged to one of these media groups, because that group is even in the sphere of influence, it kind of plays in. And I think the Tommy Robinson News Network, if he would have named it the red, white, and blue
news service,
or the wonderful Happy Time News Service or something, and he would have had a bunch of staff, and he would have gone, oh, by the way, I've got all these staff members, and they were, and he'd brought them up as well. Would this have still come through? Just coming back to your point about America, actually, they do have a high court in the upper chamber of the US administration doesn't have jurors. That they have judged.
Matthew, what have I told you about showing me up in front of my own audience? You're not supposed to go in against my opinion.
I
said it as a joke.
In fairness, this would go to one. This would go to a vote in the US. This would go to a vote of the Supreme Court, I believe, because it would be a amendment. It would be a change to the amendment. So it would be like a Roe v. Wade kind of crazy kind of thing.
Majority carries in the Supreme Court. A majority is 7. It's 13 judges.
But when it comes to just standard cases below that, I'm pretty sure they will nearly always have a jury, don't they?
In the UK, I think it's anything that carries the sentence over 6 months, I think has to be dealt with by jury. I think it's anything where the statutory sentence is less than 6 months that you can have it dealt with by 3 judges.
I know this is a statement of absolute comedy, but why doesn't he approach the European Court? Because they still overrule our Supreme Court, don't they? I mean, and since we haven't left, why shouldn't he?
Well, I mean, I think the problem we may have there is that the European Court makes some very spurious decisions when it comes to Islam. I mean, they sort of.
Oh, there was like a big case, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Where they prosecuted a woman for saying things bad about Islam, didn't they?
Yeah, I can't repeat what she said because I'll get your channel taken down.
Wait, go on. No, come on.
Honestly, you don't take your channel down.
We don't want this lad in front of the European Court either, do we? So let's be a bit.
Yeah, no, I can't say it because I'll be breaking hate speech laws.
Was it the C word, or was it just like something really horrible?
It was she was referring to the Prophet and specific interpretations of the Quran under both sides of jurisprudence, under the Shia and the Sunni interpretations, and essentially it was on a panel to talk. I think the panel was actually called Talk Islam, so it was specifically the panel on a TV show to talk about Islam, and she brought up her views, and essentially she was taken to court, and the European Court of Human Rights ruled against her, that she didn't have a right to freedom of speech if that caused, I think it was something like if it caused religious insult, essentially, that sort of thing. But essentially, they ruled that she didn't have the right to say what she said, and that essentially her right to speak didn't override the religion's right not to take offence.
Yeah, so basically it was a ruling of now we have blasphemy laws. That would pretty much sum that up.
Essentially.
Yeah. Right.
Back to the good old days when in medieval Europe, when we used to burn witches and prosecute you for blasphemy. Going back to the good old days.
Yep.
There was actually a journalist, a BBC journalist. I'm trying to find it now. I think it was on Tommy Robinson's Telegram, where she's an older, a bit of a veteran journalist in the BBC. It's not KAD.
It's Lisa Manning.
Lisa Manning.
Yeah, I think
and
so.
Didn't she say that I do find something a bit fishy or something slightly weird about this case of him going to prison for the reporting restriction, and I just thought it was quite interesting because you don't very little hear mainstream media people actually say anything positive towards his case whatsoever. And I think the reason behind that is the BBC weren't always the bunch of absolute cucks who just cut to the left on everything. They did actually used to have some more older previous generation journalists which did actually do their job, and I think she is from that part of the journalist part of the BBC where they actually did do journalism properly, and I think she sees something wrong with this. So I think that was quite interesting.
Well, the problem with the BBC is fundamentally is that their mantra is we must be unbiased. The only trouble with that is that seems to have evolved into we must not actually think about anything, and so they basically hold opinions of nowhere and basically irritate everyone all the time.
Well, here's the point I wanted to make actually, is that they used to have these journalists who actually did their job, and there was actually a bit more balance. I believe over time in the BBC and other mainstream media outlets, but the BBC especially, they are just hiring more left-wing zealots and people that pretending to be unbiased when actually they are so totally left-wing and totally biased. And I was going to make a point then, but I saw Michael joined us, and
that journalist was Kate Adey, by the way. Thanks to Bob and Melanie in the comments. Yeah,
there was this quiet neo-Marxism that creeped
in. Oh wait, before you make that point, Matthew, because I just remember what I was going to say. So there's a speechwriter called John O'Sullivan, and he used to write speeches for Margaret Thatcher and also Ronald Reagan, and he said, any organization which isn't explicitly right-wing will turn left wing over time. And that's what I think's happened with the BBC and all the other mainstream media outlets. And the reason behind that is right wing people in general, I find, or I think, tend to hire a broad spectrum of people, whilst left wing people, especially when you go to the more drifting more left, they only hire people who think like them, left wing people. And I bet that's what's happened with the BBC and all the other mainstream media outlets.
Well, this is okay. So you completely threw me there because that was great. But but I remember when I was at school, right? And I don't know if this was the same with you, but there was this creeping neo-Marxism, especially under Blair, and there was this idea of the balanced argument, that you always had to have a balanced argument. But that's not how the real world works. Some arguments aren't balanced at all. Some arguments are totally obviously one side.
Yeah, and you know what? I get accused of this all the time. Oh, Damien, you're so biased. Like, you don't do like the always say both sides of the argument. I'm sorry, but when there's an argument and I know that my side is right, I'm going to argue for that side of the argument. I acknowledge points on the other side, but it doesn't mean that I have to go, oh, well, I think this, but I can't really speak forthrightly about it because I have to be balanced. No bullshit.
Well, really,
being impartial has nothing to do with it.
Yeah, I think you're right, Damien, and I think that the core of that is that the left expect ideological conformity much more than the right do.
Yes. Go on. I see you've joined us, Michael. Do you want to?
Well, I say
tell us,
it's a good Kipper stream when Tommy Robinson's being compared to a burger, and we're talking about judging bias based on menstrual cycles.
I can't wait for that to come up in the case, and it will be Damien Heads who made the point. That'll be the history. The history of
anti-Femite, disgusting hooligan says women can't be judges because they're menopausal and hungry.
Could you just imagine the headline if Tommy Robinson's lawyer actually used that as a potential line of appeal? Like, because it's got, isn't it like a 25% chance? Like, that's good odds. That's a good bet on. Like that is actually pretty good odds. Like, and if she happens to be, like a data scientist, they could always request a.
Ask the husband. How's he treating you? How's she treating you lately? Anyway, I really think we need to move on from that.
We really do need to move on and never come back.
We love women on the show. They provide a great asset.
We need more women on this show.
Yeah. Not just in the kitchen. They got other places as well. You bigots.
Well. If there's ever a Kipper stream studio, there'll be a kitchen for the women. I'm joking.
Fuck's sake.
Even Michael, who's supposed to be the most balanced, impartial person in the world, even he's turned into an anti-Femite now.
I'm anti-feminist, but ain't no anti-Femite.
Yeah.
Anti-Femite.
It's a good word, isn't it? I got that from Gavin McInnes.
That's beautiful. That really is.
I think any sensible woman watching this will understand that it's just banter.
Well, no, in fairness, we really do need to get some women on the show because they are actually having quite a hard time, and they're getting well, this is from my kind of perspective as somebody who kind of doesn't care because I see the entire world in economics. I do care a bit, but not really because no one's written a book on it yet, and maybe that's what I should do. But they're having quite a bad time, and it would be great to get some of the female members of YI on here.
Oh, we have had
briefly.
We've had Charlie on a couple times.
Let's have them, let's have them just. Let's give them freedom to talk, kind of thing. I don't want to say that we're oppressing them with our masculinity. But...
You're making me sound like a right sexist here. Come on. We've had Charlie on. We've let her talk plenty of times, but we've also had Ewan.
We've allowed her to talk.
We've had Ewan on as well briefly, and I know that sounds like a guy's name, but that is actually a girl.
Damien was the one who said that, not me.
But anyway, on that point,
is there anyone that's going to like you when we run into them, Damien? Is there literally anyone? Is it going to be like Is it the Warriors where they're trying to get across town and all the other gangs are coming for them?
Yeah.
Is that going to be our existence in the near future?
Certainly not the NEC. They're not going to be on my side very much, especially when they see me at Southeast Conference. So yeah,
Piers Warshot gives you a flying headbutt.
But talking about like female guests and that, and I know this is a long shot. I was watching the video that we uploaded earlier with I forgot her name, but was it Diane Miller, the ex-police officer?
Yeah, Dion Miller. This is the ex-police officer of Lancashire, I think. Wait, no, somewhere in the Midlands. I can't remember.
I'm sure I could look it up. But yeah, she would be a phenomenal guest to have on.
She runs a YouTube channel which has about 14,000 subscribers, which makes me think that she might be slightly too popular for us to be able to get her. But I will try get her. Her YouTube channel is called something like Secret Reporter or something strange like that. But yeah, she's an ex-police officer, and she spoke at Tommy's trial and talked about the failure of the police. If you haven't seen it already,
she gave a fantastic 10-minute speech. I was watching it on the train journey earlier.
Well, let me just say very quickly. All you need to do is go to the Kipper Stream YouTube channel, and it's like 2 videos back, and you'll be able to see the whole of that speech.
Yeah, it was a brilliant speech.
So, carry your point on, Michael. I just wanted to make that clear.
The point was just like she'd be a fantastic guest in that.
Yeah.
I mean, there are plenty in terms of like getting women onto the stream and that. Like, at least from YI, there are a good few of them in there, but they're generally rather quiet. But I'm always happy if any of you are watching, feel free to come on and that.
1 second, let me just check my descriptors. I think does that mean that we're a heterogeneous, masculine, poisonous white space or some shite? I don't know. Is that basically our description of YI?
Hey, no, we've had John Wong on, and he's ethnically Chinese. So so there's your racist, okay?
He's ethnically.
Did you see that story about the I think it's Chinese and Indians are doing very, very well in the UK, and I was like, well, yeah, everyone knows.
They have a good bloody work ethic. That's why.
I tell you what. Let me tell you quickly the reason why Chinese and Indian families are so good at they're getting on in Britain. Whatever. Like me, a successful guy who works on a chippy. Although saying that, I do start as an electrician next week. So, but anyway, that's beside the point. Is because the parents of Indian and Chinese children, in general, tell them to study things which are going to be useful for them in their future careers, and they don't do this thing which a lot of parents do at the moment, which is like follow your dreams. Whatever you want to do, you can do it. No, actually, sometimes you need to put in things in place which are going to serve you in the future. And doing a degree in philosophy is very unlikely to serve you well in the future.
I think they invest a lot of time as well. Like they really do invest a lot of time in their children, even if that's financially unhealthy for them.
It's definitely cultural. I think there's definitely a cultural aspect to it.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking about universities and seemingly the middle class seem to be obsessed with this, and the working class the education system is trying to push working class into this as well, and the working class is suffering for it. Is there, as you were saying, like follow your dreams and whatnot? It seems to be they get pushed into these, follow these ideological paths and that, and there's nothing inherently wrong with that. But the problem is that if you are going to go take those courses, you need to land on your feet on the first go, because those jobs are not flexible. Like, I mean, those courses are not flexible, and those degrees are not flexible. Like, I found this out when I went to college for 4 years, did music, and then realized at the end that I didn't want to do it. Well, tough shit. That's not exactly a flexible degree you get, or whatever it is. Like, if you're not going to go into that career path, it's useless. And that's the same thing with like philosophy and other things. Like, if you're going to go down that path, you need to just carry on that path and land in the job that you need. Otherwise, it's just useless and wasting money.
Exactly. Well, I would just say actually, do a STEM subject: science, technology, engineering, maths. And if you want to become a musician, do it on the side. You know, you don't need to study music to become a musician whatsoever.
No.
I mean, look at bloody Oasis or whoever like that. Do you think not Noel Gallagher? What's the other one? Liam Gallagher. Do you think he was like doing his masters in music?
Yeah, like when it comes to artistic stuff, like you really don't need to go to university and stuff. You just need to be talented and just need to be committed to it. Like the only good thing the only good thing you get at university is networking, and that's about it. That's pretty much all you're getting out of it.
I just wanted to point out actually that there was a study done. This was like 8 years ago, so it's quite a long time ago, but still, I still think it's relevant. They actually found out that there was something like twice as many people. There were twice as many people studying photography in the UK. Thanks, Michael.
Sorry.
Yeah, there was twice as many people. There was twice as many people studying photography in the UK at a degree level than there were photographers in the whole of Europe.
Christ.
So that sums it up pretty much.
Why would people study photography of all things? Fucking smartphones are a reality.
Because they're told follow your dreams and you'll make it.
I kind of feel like if they were studying something like optics, and like I mean actual optics as opposed to optics media sphere,
political optics.
Yeah, as opposed to optics colloquially used. But you know, actual optics. If they were studying optics or something to do with lens technology, and then they happen to do photography as part of that, that would make sense. But I feel like maybe we should move towards a minor major kind of system where certain subjects are only considered minors. I don't think photography should be considered a major kind of concept.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good point. And also, we need to get back to grammar schools and apprenticeships. But I don't think we should spend much longer on the topic, to be honest, because we did intend
Tommy's trial.
We did intend to talk about Tommy's trial for most of the stream.
Yeah.
So let's get back to
money. There you go. Well, no, I haven't brought this up yet, but I was thinking about this. What a total waste of fucking money! Like, are you telling me? Didn't they spend £1 million on it? Are you telling me that there wasn't £1 million that could have been spent somewhere else? Much more
it's
useful.
in the public's interest, Matthew, apparly.
Well, it's good for GDP. There you go. We've just got £1 million extra in GDP. Fucking fantastic.
Michael,
I feel richer. Do you?
Oh yeah, it's totally worth it. Yeah, that and the BBC license fees. It couldn't be better spent, in my opinion. But no, Michael, you haven't spoken yet about the Tommy trial. Is this a political witch hunt? How do you feel about this case?
No, it's clearly a political witch hunt. There's no way about it. It's clearly in this well, I don't want to say assassination attempt because even for me, I think that's a bit on the strong side. But it's a character assassination attempt. Not necessarily. I wouldn't necessarily go as far as to say that they want him dead. I mean, maybe there are some in Parliament who want him dead. I wouldn't be too surprised. But it's more about destroying his character and destroying his image. Like, that's the thing that they want to get rid of, because what's the phrase? You can't kill an idea. That's eternal. You can't destroy an idea, and it's the idea that will destroy other things. And Tommy Robinson represents a lot for a lot of people. He represents the fight against, grooming gangs, political correctness,
prejudice against the working class.
Yes, and I'm glad you could say prejudice correctly this time.
No, what I was having problems with was prejudicing.
Plural, I think, wasn't it?
Prejudicing. Yeah. I've got it now. Okay. Totally different word.
Yeah, but what was it? He represents the fight against censorship. Tommy Robinson represents so much to so many people, and the political establishment know this, and they are scared of that because everything he represents is what is keeping them in power, is what is keeping them in control, and they, like I said, that terrifies them. They want to bring that down. They want to remove any threat to their status quo, and if he did become a martyr, I don't want it to, and I don't think it will happen, but if he were to become a martyr, that's basically them done. because whatever trusts the people have left in the mainstream media and the establishment, that will be gone if he dies. There'll be no redemption after that point.
People totally lose faith.
Can I just say as well, somebody in the comments much earlier on said that they'd frame it as suicide, but Tommy on multiple videos has said that he would never ever kill himself.
No.
Like,
because he said, what was it? When he was last in prison, he said he had considered it, like he felt like he wanted to, but he obviously didn't. I mean, I can't remember the true details of that, but I did hear about it.
Well, have you seen his Fox News interview when he got out of the prison last time? And you could see he was clearly suffering from PTSD, and he actually talked about it having PTSD. He didn't want to admit it.
I read an article on it, but I don't remember seeing a video.
Yeah, he
didn't want to surprise me in the slightest.
He didn't want to admit that he had PTSD until quite a bit later, because he didn't want to put himself in the same category along with, you know, serving soldiers and people like that. He thought it might be considered a bit of an insult, but he clearly had PTSD. When he was in prison last time, they put him in a cell which was on the bottom floor, right opposite the mosque in the prison, and prisoners were chucking shit through his window, so he had to have the window closed all the time. And because the prisoners, I think were serving the food as well, all he had to eat was cans of tuna, because the only thing he could trust which would not be tampered with in some way. This was in a high density Muslim prison as well, so you can't just imagine that, oh, he just happened to go to that prison, he just happened to go in a high Muslim population prison, they happened to go put him on the first floor right opposite the mosque. No way. They've stitched him up, and they probably will stitch him up again this time.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, I mean, this is very, very endemic. When you saw the news come in, there was lots of people in the Labour Party and even in the Conservative Party just absolutely overjoyed. Like, oh well, the comments were very, very telling. They want him to suffer as much as possible, which is very interesting. Very, very, again, where are the left and where are the liberals? But that's
not
very,
on the
very
left anymore. I think the liberal wing of the left wing has totally disappeared. I don't see people on the left these days, apart from super old people like Frank Field or who's the other woman. I can't remember her name.
Kate Hoey.
Who?
Kate Hoey.
Kate Hoey. These people seem to be some of the few left on the left wing who actually preach liberal principles. But these people are old. They're from old.
Yeah.
These are the older generation of the left.
Kate Hoey's standing down as well. She's not standing for re-election as Labour.
Really? What? How come?
Because she's a Leaver. Because obviously Labour have embraced Remain, so she just said that she's won't stand.
So no, but I imagine it's the case that her constituency of Labour members deselected her, because I think her constituency is actually quite Leave, isn't it? The general population.
Yeah. I think she's in a Leave constituency, but she said that when she stands for re-election, she won't stand for Labour. So I expect her to stand as an independent.
So she is standing, just not with Labour. So.
Yeah, I think. Well, what she said is that she won't. The tweet that I read just says that she won't stand with Labour. So I assume that she will stand, but as an independent.
She should join the Brexit Party.
Yeah, or probably more likely the Brexit Party.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an odd one, isn't it?
Can I just come back to this? So I just remembered about this trial, right? So the judge said, "I want to do this because I want to send a message," right? Yeah. I think it was something along those lines. And
did she wait? Can I just say, did she actually say that? Have you got a quote from that?
Yeah, I believe so. Let me just have a look at this. I'm pretty sure I saw that in the BBC story, or she said, "I want to show others that they shouldn't do this, and that's why I'm doing this to you," or something. It was. I need to make sure. Definitely. Yeah. Thanks for saving me. So at the moment, we definitely don't know that's true.
All you have to do, Matthew, is say whatever you want to say, and then at the end say allegedly, and then you're fine.
Allegedly.
Yeah.
Allegedly, she said that. I'm pretty sure. I really want to find it now.
It does beg the question, if that is what she said, what kind of message exactly is she trying to say?
Basically, she meant. I think she meant. Well, I don't know what she meant, but anyway, if that was what she meant, and if she did allegedly say that, I swear I saw that in the BBC story, but maybe I didn't. Just flicking for it now. But basically, if that's what she allegedly said, then well, why? Surely, I mean, this is just come back to my question of where is the left, not really where are the liberals. But surely, if you're really truly on the left, and you're Tommy Robinson, and you're looking at Tommy Robinson, you'll question it. You're going to say, because you don't believe that Islam is a problem or any of these things, because you're on the left. So it's all behavioural factors, right? So you're going to say, well, why is he doing this? Well, it's because he was poor, right? That's why, because he grew up poor and because he wasn't in his original home or something like this. That's where you're going to go in your mind, right? So you shouldn't really depend on the prison system, but you do, and that's very interesting. Like that's just one of these esoteric things that's come to me. I mean, the left were always the great prison reformers. But now they're not. Now they're actually depending on the prisons, and now they're going to seize your garden as well.
Yeah, they've gotten more and more Stalinist as time has gone on, rather like UKIP NEC, UKIP's NEC at the moment. So there we go. Another little dig at the NEC. Why not?
Should I bring my? Oh dear. I was going to say, should I bring my communist hat and distribute it to?
Yeah. Can you please put on your communist hat and then do an impression of the NEC? I would love to see that, and then we can clip that, make it a meme, and make it go viral. You know.
Yeah, but I don't really want to fall out with them, Damien, until we at least clear them. Until they're in my rearview mirror and I can drive away. It's a bit like The Walking Dead. The NEC are like The Walking Dead. There you go. It's like they come up behind you when you least expect them. You're like, oh fuck! You pull away and then fucking, that's the NEC.
Based on the show, all that says to me is that they're not very intimidating and they're not very intelligent.
Well, they're no. What is it? I am human zombies. You know, they're really fast fuckers who scream.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that's worse than Stalinist or better.
Oh, man.
Well, you know. Oh, yeah, we've got Batten to run. Oh, fuck me. Oh, shit. Oh.
Okay, I'd like to. New announcement on the Kipper stream. The NEC, they're not Stalinists anymore. They're actually Walking Dead zombies. So that's an exclusive on the Kipper stream.
There you go.
They're also communists.
But they are also communists. Yeah. Going back to Tommy very quickly. I've just been looking at Tommy Robinson's Telegram, and there's actually a couple of interesting things here. First of all, he's done an interview with Sargon of Akkad, and if you don't know Sargon of Akkad, you should know him. He's got about 1 million subscribers. He's in UKIP. He did a great campaign in the Euro elections. So he's done an interview for his channel.
It's actually Jonathan Wong who's doing the interview.
Yeah, it's actually Jonathan Wong and Callum, who I believe is, well, I don't believe, I know this. I'm trying to sound like I'm clever now. He is the secretary of Sargon.
Okay. Secretary of Akkad on Twitter.
Secretary of Akkad, as his name is on Twitter. So they've done an interview with Tommy Robinson on his channel, Sargon of Akkad's channel. It's called Interview with a Condemned Man. I haven't actually seen this, but I encourage you to watch that, as I will when I'm a bit less busy. You've actually seen some of it, haven't you, Matt?
Have I?
No, sorry. Oh, sorry, not Matt.
Richard.
Yeah, I started watching it earlier before the stream, but I'm only about 15 minutes in. But it looks like an interesting interview so far, so I'll definitely check that out, guys.
Give us a little lowdown of the first 15 minutes. What does he say in that?
Well, it looks like he's going to just detail all the rap charges and go through everything in a lot more detail. And I think it's a good 50 minutes long. It's about an hour long. So I think he just goes into each of the charges. I'm going to start watching it from the beginning again. But yeah, it looks like it's going to be an interesting video with a lot of information.
Okay, and the other thing I wanted to mention here, this is also on Tommy Robinson's Telegram. By the way, if you want to follow Tommy Robinson and see what's happening with him, follow him on Telegram, because it's the only real social media he has left. And Telegram is basically a messaging system similar to WhatsApp, but you can also have people that just broadcast messages like Tommy is doing here. And it was actually set up by Russian dissidents. So these people really do value free speech. So this is the one social media platform Tommy is not going to get removed from.
Who knew it would be the Russians that would come to us, save us?
Yeah, how big is the irony there? You know, yeah. Russia, which is known to be the least free throughout history, is actually coming to the savior of free speech. Yeah. Although saying that, these are citizens. This isn't the Russian government this time.
Yeah. Well, while we're on that, I mean, we got to remember that the dark web was created by the CIA to talk to their contacts in China, and then that blew up on them, didn't it? So,
you know what? I'm not educated enough to talk about that, so I'll just take your word for it.
No, it really was true. Yeah, that blew up. That went completely sideways on them. But there you go.
But the last thing I wanted to mention is he's also got a thing here saying, here, please share far and wide. Important. There's a demonstration being called for this Saturday. So that's the 13th of July outside Belmarsh Prison in support of Tommy. If you can make it, we would like people to start gathering from 12 o'clock midday to protest the unjust sentencing of Tommy. We want to make our presence known. And then there's another bit of information which is too boring to read out. But yeah, if you happen to live near, that's definitely something you might consider going to. So we were talking about the reporting restrictions earlier. What do you make of reporting restrictions existing in general, Michael?
Well, to my knowledge, the only ones I have some knowledge on, because I'm not a journalist, I don't know all that much about it. The most that I know is usually about gagging orders, and to my knowledge, they're usually used by celebrities or high officials as a way of kind of, hiding their dirty laundry is generally how it works. And to me, gagging orders, they should only ever be used in a situation where, kind of like if a military operative is going to court and the evidence being discussed is comparable to the national security. Now, you could easily make the argument, well, all information is necessary to the public, as we found out with WikiLeaks in the US and that. So it's a two-sided blade, really, but that's the only occasion I can really see gagging orders being of any use. But at the same time, people have a right to their privacy. And as we saw with, I think you guys mentioned it earlier, with, what was the celebrity? Was it one of the Beatles? No, not Rolf Harris.
Sorry.
What was the celebrity you guys mentioned earlier where he was... Oh, Cliff Richard, that was it.
Cliff Richard.
Yeah.
Not the Beatles, but yeah, Cliff Richard. Where it was absolute bullshit. There was nothing going on. And yet, because of the way the media, dealt with it, his life was put in the public display, and he had done nothing wrong. Now...
So was the case ongoing at that time when they flew a helicopter over?
They arrested him while the helicopter was in the air. Went into the property and did the raid while the helicopter was in the air recording it, because the media was tipped off that the police were going to do the raid.
Yeah, it was.
But the case hadn't actually started.
No, Cliff Richard didn't even know such thing was happening. Just one day he was just like, "You come with us," and that was it. But yeah. I don't like I say, the only thing I really know about media restrictions is gagging orders, and it's hard to say whether I'm pro or against gagging orders, because on the one hand, like you say, people are entitled to their privacy, and I think a good way going forward would be, I think it's been mentioned before with people men being accused of rape. is that, like, unless they've been found guilty, their identity should not be made public. And I think that should be more of a blanket on all prison case, not prison, but like court cases. Doesn't matter what the issue is. Like, until somebody is found guilty or not, their identity, doesn't matter which side it is, their identity should be hidden. Now but that being again, I'm being contradictory of myself, because at the same time, that if I did stand by that, that means that Tommy Robinson could be whisked off to court and nobody would be allowed to know about it. So again, I'm making broken points to it, but I don't know. It's a difficult one because I can see the pros and cons for it.
Yeah, I think it's a careful balancing act between prejudice in procedure and the public interest.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not an easy one to side on either, to be on either side, because there's pros and cons to the whole situation. I think the whole court system needs a major overhaul. Like, there are some serious issues that need fixing. That's like, I think everybody can acknowledge that.
Yeah, it's interesting because you're making me have doubts, actually. Because originally I was thinking, we should just scrap reporting restrictions altogether. But you do make a good point there about the gagging orders having some purpose. But I guess in Tommy's case, the decision had already been made. And they were just going back in to receive their sentences. And so I would say, in this case, it was wrongly done. Obviously, there's so many things wrong about this case. The fact that all the information he reported was already in the public domain. The information on reporting restrictions wasn't published online, and possibly not at the courthouse. I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, I think a good cut.
Sorry, actually having reporting restrictions, that you do make a good argument for there being a purpose of them existing, but I'm not sure where you draw that line.
It's a hard one. Like, one compromise that had occurred to me, again, this is just off the top of my head, but a good one would be everybody, it doesn't matter who you are or what the charge is, everybody involved is given anonymity. It's your choice whether you want to go public with it or not, and you want to go to the media. If you're, if somebody's framing you saying like, hey, you robbed 50 grand off me or some shit, if you know you're innocent, then, and you want to come out and say this is bullshit, then go ahead and do it. Then make it public and known. And that, but you shouldn't have, I don't think, until the court case is settled, you shouldn't have a right to then reveal the identity of the person accusing you. It should be up to them, and it's only until the court case is settled, and if the person is found to be telling bullshit or is found to be guilty, then their identity is revealed.
Well, could you make an argument there where you don't have reporting restrictions, but as someone who's being charged, you can say have the right to decide whether this is aired out in public or not? So you could still have that right without messing with reporting restrictions.
Yep.
Yes and no. Yes, if it's just you, if it's just you involved. No, if it's you, where you're being accused of something, but it entangles many other people involved, like a business, for example. Whereas the issue involved could compromise other people and their livelihood and their identity and whatnot. I think, again, it's a very difficult line, but I think...
Are you aware of the... Sorry to butt in, but are you aware of the famous case with Philip, the guy who owned Topshop? Philip?
Nah.
For God's sake, man. Whenever I'm on stream, it's like I just instantly forget. Philip Green, that's his name. Okay. So Philip Green, he owns Topshop and all this kind of thing, and he was getting sued, I believe, and I think it might have been Frank.
Oh, I think I know what you're talking about. Was this where one of the lords revealed his identity?
Sorry, not Frank Field. It was one of the lords that revealed his identity because they have they're not affected by the justice system in that way. They're allowed to reveal stuff.
They get parliamentary privilege.
So that's another interesting side of it. I mean, there's all these sorts of things with English, British law which have just evolved over centuries, and it's quite interesting how it all works.
Yeah, like I said, I think the whole system, I think everything, it shouldn't be done instantly, but everything over time needs to be reformed. Let's be honest, the Lords have very unusual and overreaching powers. Like, I think most of us could, I think most of us could agree the Lords' powers are a bit extensive and they need to be drawn back a bit. Like, they have too many privileges, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, well, they're not democratically voted for, and there is an argument for their legitimacy if it wasn't for the fact that I think it was David Cameron or Tony Blair, they introduced legislation where basically they could just appoint lords willy-nilly. So what happens now is every prime minister just appoints people from their political party. So you get a bunch of people who are just fall in line with who they like. So
yeah, well, the Lords do serve a purpose because their job is to not make laws or propose them, but they're to scrutinize laws passed by the House of Commons, which means they basically, whatever bill gets passed in the House of Commons, it comes to them. They go through it, they check its legality, make sure that it can actually work, and that there's no contradictory issues going on. And if they say, yeah, this will work, they stamp it, and then off it goes. That's their main job. Obviously, with everything that went on with the Brexit and all the bills that kept getting pushed on and week out, the Lords obviously were overreaching their powers with that, because there was nothing inherent. There was nothing necessarily wrong with some of those bills, but they were just like, no, we don't like this, blah, blah, blah. And they just
some of that had interests. They had interest in blocking it, really. So that I don't want to get sued, so I'm not going to mention which ones. But a lot of the Lords actually did have some interest in blocking Brexit because they get money from the European Union.
Well, I think more likely that they're just politically aligned with the EU and they believe that this is the future for civilization, rather than the fact that they get money from them.
No, some of them actually do get money.
Yeah, they just want to ride the gravy train.
Yeah, like I say, there is a purpose to the Lords, but it's the structure of the Lords and some of the overreaching powers of the Lords the problem. It's not the actual function of the Lords makes sense, and I wouldn't get rid of it, but I would definitely reform it.
Yeah, I thank the Lord that UKIP has one Lord in the House of Lords, which is Lord Pearson, who is
top chat,
is the most based guy over 70. In fact,
I'm surprised that the Lords aren't more outspoken, because when you're that old, you're going to be dead soon. Like if I was no, but I mean, if I was a Lord, I'd just get up there and I'd be like, welcome to Geezer Kip.
That reminds me, actually, I asked my grandmother once. I said, "Okay, would you rather die now, but then everyone in the world dies at the same?" No, sorry. Would you rather die now or die of natural death when you're older? But then when you die when you're older, everyone else in the world dies. And she said that. She was like, "Yeah, fuck everyone in the world. I'll just die. I'll just die with them."
To be fair, that would be a good life goal, like aspiration, to just like eventually get into the Lords and just be like, fuck you.
Well, I bet, to be honest, because a lot of them used to be hereditary, didn't they? So I imagine you probably did get more hardcore ones back in the day. But these days, it's only Lord Pearson spreading the truth around in the Lords, it seems.
Yeah.
But going back to Tommy's trial, yeah, well, it's all connected. It's all connected. But talking about the Tommy movement more broadly. So how is this going to affect the Tommy movement, and what is he going to do when he comes out? I know he has the documentaries which are going to come out. There's
Louis Theroux. He's doing one with Louis Theroux, isn't he?
Is he?
Yeah, I read that somewhere. Yeah, Louis Theroux wants to do a document. Well, it's allegedly. I read this somewhere that Louis Theroux is apparently going to do a documentary with him. So.
Well, I was on about the documentaries that Tommy is actually making. He's got one which he is making with Avi Yemeni called Shalom, which he talked about at the Tommy trial, and it's basically going to talk about anti-Semitism, especially in these areas where there's a lot of anti-Semitism because there's a high Muslim population. And also Avi Yemeni's gone to Israel, and he's interviewing people in Israel apparently. And he's also doing a documentary on grooming. So he's got a lot on his plate. So going to prison at the moment isn't that ideal.
Did you say he's doing the topic on grooming?
He's doing a documentary on grooming.
Do you know
you mean grooming gangs, not like the task of grooming yourself?
Coming back to that, I really dislike that word because it doesn't adequately sum up what happened at all. Like as a descriptive word of what actually happened, grooming, it does not quite cut it, does it?
Yeah, it was the gang rape of children.
No, yeah, I mean there was young girls being nailed to tables through the tongue.
She had it. Yeah, she had a tongue nailed to a table, and
I mean that's not really grooming, is it? Like you think about some bonobos grooming each other on the Serengeti, and David Attenborough sat there. The bonobos are grooming one another.
If you're really technical about it, it would be what I would call sexual indoctrination.
But that's why I do give slight credence to the grooming as a term, because it's not just
softer on years, isn't it?
It's not. Well, no, it's not just like the rape and the more harsh things. It's also getting into these girls' minds psychologically, like trying to make them think that you are going to look, trying to get them. Sorry?
Gaslighting, I believe, is a term you could use.
Gaslighting?
Yeah, gaslighting, yeah.
Sorry, you've lost me there, but don't carry on.
It comes from a 1947 play from a 1942 book. No, this is a pretty common term. If you Google it, you'll get a description for gaslighting, and it's exactly what you're describing.
Okay, anyway. Because like I said, they're really sinister, these people. They try and get into these girls' heads, make them think that they're going to look after them, because a lot of these girls have come from very unprivileged backgrounds where they've had problems at home, whether it be domestic abuse or troubles domestically, and they've taken advantage of that, which is actually pretty damn sinister. So it's not just the brutal act of the rape and things like that. And I should point out actually that we also posted on the Kipper stream and a few videos back again. There's a grooming survivor called Amy, and she was a grooming survivor from Telford, and she did a speech at Tommy's trial talking about the failure of the social services and the police in Telford, and you should definitely check that out as well, because the way the social services and the police have handled these issues is just disgraceful.
Yeah.
Well, they're under political pressure, so to an extent.
I mean, I'm not a huge fan of capital punishment, but I think in some instances I'd be willing to bring back hanging or quartering or any of the, old English traditions of execution. I think would be quite.
I love you always said that with a bit of joy in your voice. The old English traditions.
Yeah.
God, I used to love that. A bit of Morris dancing and capital punishment. That's what I love.
Well, I'd rather see the exact opposite. I'd rather like to just not see people going to prison because we preemptively stop these things happening. Wouldn't that be a grand idea? And then not spend money that we don't otherwise need to spend, and then that won't be very good for our GDP. But
Douglas Murray makes a great point similar to that, where he says all these terrorist attacks, instead of bringing up these barriers at bridges and barriers outside buildings, why don't we just do the barriers at the bloody border? He didn't quite put it like that, I have to admit. He didn't go bloody put them at the border, but he said it in a similar way.
Yeah. I'd say a good compromise between Rich and Matthew would be like, well, instead of the prison system, we'll have a reforming system, and for those that aren't willing to reform, we'll just take you out and shoot you. I mean, I think it's a pretty good compromise, wouldn't you say? Either change or you're dead.
Yeah. Well, there's say what you like about the Russian health system. One thing they do well is, if you got an illness, they just shoot you. Done. Dealt with.
Well, it's $17 for £17 British for 4 toilet rolls in Russia. So they can't really afford to keep you. So I
Yeah,
can't
but I mean,
blame them.
if Russia does have a good death penalty, like it's very humane because all they'll do is just take out like the person being sentenced and just throw them into the wilderness. They'll be dead within a day.
Yeah.
Because the Russian wilderness is fucking horrendous. If the
What,
cold don't get you, it'll be a bloody bear.
yeah. What's that place up north in Russia where it's super cold? I always forget names when I'm streaming.
It's all up north.
Well, are you on about Magadan or Siberia or
Siberia.
Siberia, yeah.
That's not actually in the north. That's
Unfortunately, we don't have a Siberian equivalent in the UK. Maybe
We got
there's
Scotland,
somewhere in
that's close
Scotland.
enough.
Yeah. Well, the Isle of Man. That's a good place to make people suffer, I guess. Having to live there.
watch the
Well,
TT.
we had
Deal
Lloyd
with
on.
bloody TT fans.
Sorry. Yeah, I was gonna say we had Lloyd on in the other stream, and he was saying like, "Oh yeah, if you go into the wrong place, you get stabbed." I mean, that's close enough, you know. If you get given a death,
Send them to Glasgow.
send them to a rough street in Scotland, you'll be all right.
You guys are not really helping my reformist cause here.
Hey man, if they can survive, then they have a right to live.
Hey guys, I've just seen. I was going to look for the comments now, and I've just seen we've reached over 530 subscribers, which is quite good. We were on less than 500 earlier today.
Yeah, I think the NEC and the Tommy situation, because I've been posting it like crazy on the Twitter accounts.
Are we in front of a young Jacob Marshall now? Or
by about 5 times the amount? Yes.
Oh, he claimed he was above us the other day. Was that fake news?
No, that's Facebook. He's talking rubbish. But anyway, let's not talk about that because people won't know who the hell Jacob Marshall is anyway. He's just some random little kid in Young Independence. And I know he's watching that, so I'm sorry, Jacob, but you're not a hero.
I think that the Brighton House crew were watching us earlier as well. I had a look on the hub, and they were.
Oh, okay.
They had us on their flat screen.
The Brighton House crew.
Yeah, I don't want to give away any names, but
is that where some certain people are staying? Is it?
Oh, I thought they were staying in Brighton. Oh crap! Maybe I shouldn't have said that. all the left-wing people will be after them.
Shall we read some comment? Have you been looking at any of the comments, Michael?
Oh no, you were doing it earlier, so I assumed you were still doing it.
Yeah. I know. I was going to say yeah. Well, it seems we must have got all these subscribers because we keep slagging off the NEC. So we surely we need to slag off the NEC a bit more while we're at it. So bloody
who's
fascist.
on the NEC? Let's go through them. Hang on. No,
all right, I should stress like before it gets a little bit too serious, we can't actually give out the names of people.
Yeah, let's not do that. Yeah. But
they already have issues with us enough. Let's not push it too.
Yeah. But
I can't wait. I can't wait. This is going to be absolutely
let's push it even more. Actually, Stalinist wankers. Okay, the Stasi's in the NEC. Yeah, you think you can block Gerard? Come on, mate. Go on.
Oh my God.
See how you handle this legal case, boys. All right.
I was talking to my branch chairman earlier, and he was like, "Yeah, like I thought I got that email you told me about the Kipper stream and that," and he was like, "Yeah, I'd love to put that all over our Facebook page." And I was like, "Yeah, it's great. I should probably tell you first about the situation with the." And he was like, "Oh, what's that?" And I was just like,
"Well, don't divulge too much
I won't,
information."
All I said was there may be a certain thing online, and they're not overly happy about it.
Well,
and he was just like, "Oh, Michael."
Yeah, well, we can't talk too much about details to do with the NEC, but let's just say we are not in favour, that's for sure, of them blocking Gerard.
One thing I would say is if Batten doesn't get to stand, I think it would be massively beneficial for Batten to publicly endorse Richard Bray, because I'm seeing a lot of members who are just saying, "I'll never ever vote again. I won't vote for UKIP unless Batten stands." But I think if Batten was to come out and publicly endorse Bray, then I think a lot of people who would otherwise leave will vote and will stay.
But the problem with that is that a lot of people are so wedded to Gerard, and the fact that the NEC can just do this and block Gerard on these spurious grounds where he's apparently associating with someone who's bringing the party into disrepute. And basically the line they're taking is that there's a law in the party rules which says you cannot invite or people who are part of prescribed organizations, and this is essentially the law, I believe, in the party, the rule in the party rules which they're going off. But Tommy is not a member of the EDL or any of these prescribed groups.
He wasn't a member when the group was prescribed. So you have to look at the chronology of events, because depending on what the rule book states, I mean, if you're a member of an organization and then you leave, and then that organization subsequently becomes prescribed, where would that fall in the rule book? You know.
Well,
that would then fall into the really dangerous position which nobody should have to deal with in society, which is guilt by association. It's what the left tries to do to everybody that they don't like, and we should not be falling into that bad habit of doing the same thing. Guilt by association is a fucking awful thing. You shouldn't do it.
But it doesn't say that in the party rules about past associations. It's people who are part of the prescribed list currently.
Yeah.
So there's no real basis for what they are saying, which is why if they carry on down this route, like I said when I started this stream, legal letters have been forwarded to each member of the NEC, and if they don't respond, they're going to have an injunction put against them. And from what I hear, there's a pretty strong case on our side that they're going to have to let him back in the race because they don't have a good case.
But didn't you should have all got the email earlier from the returning officer, Piers. Yeah, you should have all got the email earlier basically saying like the deadline has passed, these are the candidates and that. And to me, that basically says, yeah, we don't give a shit. We're just going to carry on.
They're sticking by their guns.
Well,
yeah, that's what concerns me.
What they effectively can do, I mean, what they effectively can do is they can wait it out effectively because, like when they first blocked Gerard, a lot of people quit the party. A lot of his support, and that probably didn't help that with my tweet. Matthew Travis UKIP, follow me.
Plug.
But on Twitter. No, Matthew Travis UK, not UKIP. But anyway, no.
Do you know what the NEC are going to be doing right now? They're going to be going, right, Matthew Travis. Okay, let's look at the Southeast Conference. Like, where is he sitting?
Yeah. Oh God, I have to take a no. No. But no, basically, if they wait it out, then they could probably just piss off all of Gerard's support. That might be a strategy. But
if they wait it out,
yeah.
I don't. Yeah, but they can't wait it out because they have this legal case against them, which I said before is.
Yeah, but how long does it take to complete?
Well, I don't know the nitty-gritty details, but I don't actually think it will take that long to turn around. I think that certainly before the leadership race is concluded. Yeah. So this is bad news for them if they do continue to follow down this path. And just to add some balance, like we were talking about earlier, when I do slag off the NEC, I'm not talking about every member on the NEC. There are, of course, a few good members on the NEC, but let's face it, the majority are not. They're tossers. So we do need to replace them when the next elections come around later this year. So later this year, stay tuned because there is going to be some movement there.
Yeah, like I was discussing this earlier when I was at a meeting and that, and we were it was told to a good point was made to me is that it's not all of the NEC the problem. It's
do we know what the vote was in terms of numbers?
Well, all we know is that no, because none of them are coming forward with details. Well, there is a legal case on.
Because I'm on the NEC page now, and to me, it looks like NEC members are no longer NEC members. I don't know. Let me just count because there should.
Well, let me just explain a few things, Matthew. So with the NEC, no one's coming forward with information at the moment, and that's because the legal case is happening right now, so they don't want to put themselves in trouble. But before the legal case was put forth, they could have said how the NEC voted. However, they chose to keep that information to themselves because they wanted to do this mealy-mouthed thing where hopefully people would just get a bit annoyed, forget about it, it will go away, and then that'll be done. You know, Gerard's gone out the picture, and we can go to being a crappy milquetoast Farage party. But that has clearly failed, and they've had a massive backlash. And now they have this legal case. So now, even if they wanted to report it, which they wouldn't do anyway, they would not say how the members voted. Yeah, but it's a shitstorm right now, and let's go back to the main principle of this. We are a party of democracy, and the NEC have voted to block a candidate based on a reason which isn't even supported by the party's own rulebook. And you know what's even more ironic about this? Ben Walker, who they did approve as a candidate, he was charged with over £11,000. No, not allegedly. This was in the bloody Bristol Post, mate. Okay. This is public domain.
No, yeah, okay? This is Ben Walker's admitted this at the UKIP Wigan meeting as well. So this is definitely true.
Yeah, so Ben Walker was charged with over £11,000 for by Bristol Magistrates Court for breaching building regulations. Okay, and according to the NEC, you know, that's absolutely fine. But what Gerard done is just totally out of order. Yeah. And before you mention that, before you say anything, Richard, I don't think Ben Walker should be blocked for what happened with the building regulations whatsoever. But they can't say that Gerard is blocked and Ben Walker is absolutely approved fine. That's total hypocrisy. It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
I agree.
We only bring up that comparison. I mean, I think it's fair to say most of us here are pro-ban, but we only bring up that point because there is a hypocrisy. It's not that we're anti-Walker or pro-ban. I mean, we are pro-ban, but we're not against any other candidate. But we only bring it up because there is a real hypocrisy on what's going on here, and it's a good example to use. So just in case anybody thinks we're being biased, like that's the reason we bring it up. That's the reason.
Exactly. And also, just briefly, I'll touch on this. In Young Independents, which is the youth wing of UKIP, there was going to be a referendum held on whether the NEC should block Gerard from standing, and it basically the YI council, which represents all the chairmen for all the regions across the UK. And they basically voted in support of this referendum. So it was all set to go through until one member of the exec on YI put forward a motion to block the referendum happening. I'm not going to name his name, but he knows who I am, and he knows that I'm not happy with him whatsoever. And if you're in Younger Independents, you'll know who it is because I did name him publicly in the YI hub. But let's say, but before I go off that topic, actually, there was a poll done before the official idea of a referendum, which said that the majority of members of the youth wing of UKIP in the Facebook group were against the NEC blocking Gerard standing. So I think from that poll, it's fair to say that the younger members of UKIP strongly disagree with the NEC blocking Gerard. Go on, whoever wants to jump in now. I just wanted to get that off my chest.
Yeah, I mean, there's a meme going around, doing the rounds at the moment, and it's the finger and the two buttons, and it's the finger is the NEC, and the two buttons are allow Gerard to stand or destroy UKIP.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say earlier with Brain. As much as I absolutely love Brain, for the integrity of UKIP to still exist, they need to let Gerard run, because a lot of people will go, well, yeah, Brain's good and all, but look, we've clearly got the head of UKIP, the NEC, against us. They won't let us have our opinion. They don't want us to have our democratic choice. why should we
Yeah.
bother with this party that doesn't give a shit about us?
Yeah,
I was
trying to make the
so
argument.
important.
I was trying to make the argument earlier online, like, people don't tear up your cards, don't run off or anything. Like, the situation's bullshit, and hopefully, with the pretty clear, the court case is probably going to go forward now because the NEC are once again doubling down on a situation they shouldn't.
It's 100% going forward, Michael.
Oh, I believe it. I never rule anything out, but yeah, I just think Brain is a good second choice. He's basically like Batten 2.0, and I was saying, a vote for Brain is basically a vote for Batten because their principles are very, very closely aligned. But like you were saying, it's the principle of the issue, and it's that it doesn't matter whether Brain is just as good a candidate. The fact is the NEC is blocking the most popular candidate on a tiny technicality which holds very little ground. And it's just undemocratic. It's a massive middle finger up to the members, and the NEC are just reluctant to actually acknowledge that. And so people are unwilling to, kind of compromise on Brain because on principle they're just like, no, fuck this is wrong. I shouldn't have to compromise myself just because of what the NEC is doing. I'll just not even get involved and I'll leave them to their own business. And that's, I understand it. I completely understand that principle, and I'm certainly not going to argue against it. It makes perfect sense, and it's a very difficult argument to try and convince people to back Brain when they have every right to just leave because of the way the NEC is acting.
The argument about not letting Gerard run because of the media stuff, because the media always bring up Tommy, or they bring up Carl, or they bring up Marcus. Well, we need to get more inventive with how we do media, in effect. We need to really, really think outside the box in a big way. Because I understand that they're saying that only using YouTube is probably not going to be sufficient, although maybe it will be, because we don't know how much of our vote is under the age of 16.
No, but YouTube is just a small part of the equation, obviously.
We need to.
The biggest aspect is having boots on the ground, being grassroots. I mean, as much I probably won't vote for Walker because I personally don't think he's the right character or person to push the party forward. But I do completely get his principles, and I completely get his policies. Yes, we need to hammer on the grassroots issue that UKIP has at the moment. That is an absolutely sound policy, and that is what's going to take us forward. But YouTube and the online social medias, especially the alt medias, they're going to be majorly important in reaching out to the upcoming generation, which see the PC bullshit for what it is, and they're not going to buy into it. They're going to go elsewhere, and we need to tap into that before we miss it.
But where I would slightly disagree with you there is that I feel like grassroots is obviously important. And Gerard believes in that as well. He believes in the grassroots approach, even if he doesn't, plaster it all over his posters like Ben Walker has. But we need to get the culture right in UKIP. We need to have a leader who represents us, which says, we are UKIP. We are going to stand for free speech, talking about the difficult issues, grooming gangs, Islamic extremism, etc. Terrible treatment of our veterans, etc., etc. And we're going to just speak honestly, openly, not cuck to, the mainstream media narrative. We're just going to say it how it is, because that inspires people, and that is a big factor for why people feel energized and motivated to campaign on the grassroots level. So I actually think you can't really have one without the other. You have to have that strong leadership and that strong culture that stems from the leadership.
Yeah, we need to fix the internal, as you put it, culture within UKIP. We need to fix that first before we do anything else. And then we move on to the issues of how we push the party forward.
And we can start that by introducing a bit of democracy, which the NEC do not seem to like for some reason.
Yeah, bang on. What were you going to say, Matthew?
Well, yeah, I mean, if if we basically did more as a party, like what we did tonight, talking about how we're going to reform the prejudice laws. I mean, like, that's a difficult discussion, right? And it's not like any other party. I mean, we've probably in our hour-long or half-hour-long discussion, we probably went into more depth in it than you will ever see on Question Time. You more depth than Labour, because Labour won't show any variety of thought. So if basically there's plenty of difficult issues that no one's dealing with, and it's not just the veterans and the national. I mean, even the economics of it is a difficult issue, because economically we've built our entire system on more people. That's our growth model, more people.
The neoliberalist agenda.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really difficult question, and that's something that we could get. I mean, the Conservatives can say what they like about the economy, but if you say, well, the economy is fantastic because of this GDP figure, and the person on the street isn't really feeling it, and it's quite worrying that it's been left to Corbyn to tout his bollocks. And that there's been no one to
Sorry, I didn't understand that. What do you mean, tell his bollocks?
Well, because his Marxist economic
call out his do you mean call out his bullshit?
Well, no, basically Corbyn is the only one admitting that there's anything wrong in the economy at all.
Yeah.
I mean, the Lib Dems just say, well, we want a fairer. They don't really go into any detail. And Labour come out with this sort of Trotskyite vision of it, and Conservatives go, everything's fine. What are you on about? And the Brexit Party go, well, actually, everything's fine. What are you on about? And it will all fix itself if we just do this and that and this, but it won't really fix itself, because our entire growth model.
Once we leave the EU, that's going to solve everything, basically.
It won't, basically. And I don't think the other thing is leaving the EU will be difficult. No one's admitted this. I don't think anyone's admitted this, really. But that doesn't mean that you basically sign a surrender document. And just because something's difficult, it doesn't mean that you don't do it. Like, what a terrible principle for life that will be on every level. If it's difficult, I'm not going to do it. Could you really imagine telling your kids that?
Yeah, don't oppose the Nazis. It might be hard.
Yeah. One thing I found interesting, actually, is, Labour are getting under intense pressure at the moment with the anti-Semitism scandal, and this was on Panorama. I was going to say Panodrama then, and the mainstream media have been criticising Labour massively on the anti-Semite issue. And when we say the media is left-wing, they are left-wing, but they're not Marxist. Well, they are Marxist in a way, but they're not like communist, Trotskyite.
They're globalists.
They're neoliberalist, globalist left-wing. That's the narrative which they subscribe to, and that's why they do come down hard on people like Corbyn, who actually want some form of state interventionism, because we actually believe in state interventionism in UKIP. That's what we do agree with. Well, dare I say it, people like Jeremy Corbyn. We believe in nationalising. Well, Gerard Batten certainly believes in nationalising the trains. I know I certainly do, and I know a lot of people in UKIP do as well.
Well, you're subsidising them anyway, a lot, or you're getting ripped off massively. There was a deal up in, and I won't mention any train companies because I really don't want to get sued. Now we've got 530 subscribers. There was a train company up in the north, and there was this franchise deal. So they took on this massive payment for the Department for Transport to take on this franchise deal.
No, wasn't it the East Coast or the West Coast?
I think it was Great Northeastern or something. I don't want to say who it was. It probably wasn't Great Northeastern. It was a train franchise. But they took on this contract. Things went sideways, let's say. They then there was a clause in the contract under the privatization kind of initiative that they could basically pull out at any time. So they did. Then obviously there was no one to run any trains, so it was under state control for a while, and it actually got a lot better. And then they re-tendered it privately, even though it had got better, back to the exact same company that had given it up, and and the company basically got paid twice. That's how bad our tendering kind of system is in private trains, and we're subsidising it anyway, so it just doesn't make any sense.
But there was that railway line which was privatised, but then it went back to government ownership because the railway company or the train line company did such a terrible job of it, and it ended up being in good profit and actually running really well. So that just kind of says bollocks to that argument.
And it went back. They then had to, under their agreement, because they had to get agreement from the government for this, and then they had to go back, and it went back, and it went to fucking shit again. So, what was the point in that? It just, it's one of the things that I like about Gerard Batten's policies, that he is for renationalisation.
Yeah, he's not just let's bang on about Islam and immigration. Not at all. This is a super learned guy. He knows his stuff. And one interview I definitely encourage you to listen to with Gerard Batten is James Dillingpole's podcast with him, because he says some really interesting things, and he actually said some things about Thatcher, because I was always sort of broadly in favour of Thatcher a while ago, but then he said, well, I know you're like that because you're a northerner, Richard. We all know how the north feels about Thatcher, but he actually said some things, and I was like, wow, yeah, Thatcher, she was a bit of a bitch. So he's got a point there.
With the onset of neoliberalism, you can see under Thatcher, you can see the house price to earnings ratio graph. So house price earnings ratio here, years here, go like this. Basically, it goes from 4 to about 9, I think. So it basically is almost doubled. So it's so so the house prices have doubled effectively, but your salary hasn't.
So it may have liberalized things at the time, and like selling off the social housing helped working class people get on the housing ladder and things like that, but it didn't necessarily help future generations, and obviously big heavy industry. I don't know if you want to say a quick few words on Thatcher, Richard.
I'm obviously not a fan of Thatcher. I didn't mind her stance on Europe. There's some great Thatcher quotes on Europe where she really handed it to him, but other than that, she's not popular in the north at all. not popular up here. Closed a lot. Absolutely destroyed communities. So yeah, she's one of the reasons why Labour's so tribal. In the north, a big factor in that.
But I guess the argument on her side was that the unions did have maybe slightly too much power at that point, and that they were slowing industry down, and there needed to be more freedom, liberalizing there, but at the same time, not just absolutely obliterate, big heavy industry like she did. So
yeah, I mean, she sold our industry off basically, and that's part of the end goal of globalization. And you see it at the moment with the industrial nations, where they're sort of moving the production and the manufacturing out of those nations and moving finance and capital in. And that's one of the transitions that the UK made with moving from a manufacturing-based industry to a services and finance-based industry. And that facilitates the movement of people, the movement of goods. So yeah, ultimately, I think it's part of the same. And I don't even think it's targeted or it's anybody's end goal. I just think it's a natural accumulation of power and wealth, and those power and wealth moving into ever smaller circles, essentially.
Have you been, sorry to go off subject, but have you been reading the comments, Michael? Oh, he's disappeared. Because I saw a good comment here which said does anyone know where Carl stands? I know he's a big Batten guy, and you may lose both. Carl brought a lot of members, much to the chagrin of people like Hookham. So Carl is very well. Actually, I say that, but I don't actually know. But
I don't think we should quote him because we don't know. That's the thing, and he's quite a powerful.
But just the virtue of the fact that Carl basically joined because Gerard kind of allowed him to join. Yeah. Surely you would think he was pretty pro Batten.
Yeah, he definitely is pro Batten. He's there's a number of his YouTube videos where he explicitly makes pro Batten statements. You know, he calls him a mad lad and all sorts of stuff. He's definitely pro Batten.
Yeah, he's a.
Okay, sorry about that. I seem to have lost connection with the stream for some reason. Like I was here, my camera was all working, but I don't know, it was all weird. But yeah, I saw the same comment that you just read out, and I was about to read out, and then you mentioned that my connection had dropped out.
Yeah. I think it's fair to say that he's probably a bit of a Batten supporter, but obviously he's staying impartial because he doesn't want people to think he's trying to run UKIP or something.
Yeah, that was
George Soros.
That was one of the weird, bizarre accusations that's been flying around that Carl's been trying to take over, and that's not true because, we know it's not true because we're quite Batten, and we know that he's been nowhere near it. So, so it's I'd just like to quash that one while we're here.
Well, it seemed to be a YI conspiracy, last I could check, because nobody else was talking about it. There seemed to be some certain individuals in YI that are obsessed with it.
Yeah, there's a lot of individuals in Young Independents who talk a lot of shite, in my opinion. So I wouldn't take it's the few individuals too seriously.
I take with the certain. I feel we all know who I'm referring to, but like the certain group of YI, and it brings me such an element of comfort that they are not representative of the whole party.
Absolutely, yeah. And this is a general rule for life as well. Just because you have a minority of vocal people, do not think that they represent the rest of the country, much like the mainstream media, because that is not the case whatsoever.
In fairness, I understand their point a little bit. I'm going to concede a little bit to them. I understand their point because a lot of them are in places that are heavily left-wing. And obviously, the further we go towards the Batten stance, the more difficult it is for them to not get milkshaked. Whereas some of us are in places which are more conservative or more less milkshakey. Let's put it that way. So we're kind of less worried about it. But the thing is, I mean, it's a really difficult one. I think really what we need to do, our compromise with them, is that we need to talk more about things that aren't. We need to talk more about economics and other elements. Really.
No, but as much as you want to talk about those kind of subjects, we're always going to come back to the subjects which the mainstream media want to bang on about, which is grooming gangs and not bang on about as in they bang on about. They ask us about these same questions again and again. So it's always going to be an issue. We're never going to escape that. Well, we might as well just say, you know what? Screw you guys. We're going to speak about it.
I don't think. Yeah. Well, we should still speak about it. But I still think if we really got inventive, like if we really got inventive with some policy, and then all the BBC did was ask us about Tommy Robinson, because at the moment we're just libertarian. Well, at the moment we're very libertarian in our policy, or we got some nationalisation stuff.
I would argue. I know this is a tainted word for some people. I would say conservative libertarian spectrum.
Yeah, but it's not very creative. Let me put it that way. It's not very creative. There's nothing in there that really gives me an economics boner. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, but you're like Richard Cunningham in that aspect. You have a bit of a boner for social housing policy and things like that. We do talk about these things in UKIP, but yeah, you're right. Maybe we could talk about things like that a bit often. But
like Matthew was saying about, you know, like some of us live in different areas and some of them are politically aligned to different beliefs and whatnot. And this was brought up when we at the end of the. Sorry if my voice is going a bit weird. My mic's gain's going strange for some reason. It was brought up, at the end of the live EU debate that we did, when two individuals came on and they were saying, it's really difficult to campaign in certain areas and that because it's rough and whatnot. So how can we keep pushing for these arguments when it's going to start angering people? And I can sympathize with that. Like, I understand that some areas are rough, and it's if you can't get out of that area, that's unfortunate. But we can't compromise ourselves.
No,
because people will oppose us. Because what's the point of being principled?
And also, these places where you get the most vitriol, these places are never going to vote UKIP anyway. The places we want to target, they actually like the more open, honest rhetoric and speaking really forthrightly about issues, hard issues, immigration, housing, and things like that, and really sort of say it powerfully. We actually benefit more with that approach because we fire up the people that care about these issues. So I don't think we can. I don't think there is no middle ground between the people who just want to, play nicey and the people that actually care really strongly about issues.
Yeah.
No, we need to be.
Yeah, that was the kind of the point I was trying to make. Is look, if you want real change, you're just gonna. If you really want to fight for that change, you're just gonna have to suck it up. And like, I can sympathize that some areas, some few areas are no-go areas. That's understandable. There's a few of them in the UK, and some areas are really rough, and that. But it's all about how you portray yourself. It's all about how you bring out your messaging, and that. But if you actually want change, and you're absolutely dedicated, you're just gonna have to do it. And that you can't compromise to the people trying to oppress you, because then you're being oppressed. And then what kind of person are you going to stand on? Like, what kind of principled person are you going to be if you're just going to be like, yeah, I want to fight for change, but people bad, I'm too scared. No.
For UKIP,
it's just like, I sympathize with you, but that's kind of I'm going to sound like a dick, but that's the coward's way out.
But for UKIP to succeed, we don't need to win over Brighton and Bristol. It ain't ever going to happen. We need to win over Middle England, and Middle England is very prime territory, and the way you win over Middle England is by talking strongly about these issues which matter to Middle England. Well, I shouldn't say Middle England. It's just because that's the phrase, isn't it? Middle Britain, if you like.
Yeah, no, I understand what you mean. Yeah.
That's why we need Gerard Batten as leader. So NEC, get your head out your asses, go back to your meeting table, your round table, or whatever it is, put that motion forward, and return Gerard Batten so he's able to stand for the hope and for the integrity of not just UKIP, but for also the hope of ordinary people out there who don't have a party that represents them, a big party with a big infrastructure, which talks about immigration and these Islamic extremism and grooming issues seriously and properly and honestly. We're not going to have someone represent us in that capacity if we don't have Gerard Batten as leader, in my opinion.
Well, they're going to have to get about it bloody quick, because it's three emails later. All they've done is double down. They're not making it any easier for themselves. And that, like, I think for a lot of people, they would forget. Well, I'd say forget, but they'd be lenient on the NEC if the NEC would just double back, or just back off on this and let Batten run. Like, there would be enough of them to be like, all right, you did the right thing. I'm still not happy with you, but you did the right thing. But this is the thing: Southeast conferences tomorrow over the weekend. There are going to be, I imagine, there's going to be plenty of people there that are going to have a lot to say if this isn't sorted.
Yeah, Damien's going to get fucking swift headbutted by Piers Bullshot.
I actually I googled Piers Walcott yesterday, and did you know, like 10 years ago, he was actually involved in a brawl in court where
Wow.
two people were fighting, and he ended up splitting them apart. So he definitely has a bit of gumption there. So yeah, I'm not sure if I'd be.
Yeah, I got nothing against Piers, because Piers just, to me, is just somebody who's been put in an interim leadership position because the position needs to be filled. So I don't hold anything against Piers.
Well, we
No,
don't even know.
but
We
the
don't
thing-
even know how he voted, because we don't know how the NEC voted.
No,
Yeah,
we don't.
That's true.
We don't, and we need to know that absolutely.
No transparency whatsoever.
Yeah, and
No.
this is, I get messages like this quite often, like, oh, you shouldn't bash the NEC, like, they're trying their hardest and they do a good job on that, but they do the most stupid things like this, and the way they handled the Stephen Wolf case, I think, was pretty bad as well. And they've made so many terrible decisions that, I'm sorry, but they are ripe for criticizing right now.
Yeah.
Now of all times, especially.
Yeah. If somebody, I was talking about this earlier, and somebody was like saying, like, if the NEC can't take being mocked and they start going after people, I'm not saying like hinting anything, but if they were to get start wanting to go after people because they were mocking them, that would basically be a death sentence for them.
Yeah, and if they can do it to Gerard Batten, they can do it to all of us, just like Tommy.
Yeah. I mean, it's the shit, like the NEC acting like, well, you said it, Stasi bastards.
Yeah.
they're fucking acting all tyrannical and shit. Like, I know that's quite a hyperbolic thing to say.
It's true.
But they're acting like gatekeepers, and that's quite concerning.
You know what? I actually did an interview with Sargon for Kipper Central, and that always stuck in my mind. I said, what's the biggest problem in politics today? Gatekeeping, that's what he said. It's totally that. Mainstream media, politics, people gatekeeping. They don't want ordinary people to come in and be involved in the process. They don't want the democratic will of the people to be carried out. They want to have their own little cabal. And no, we know better. We know better. We're the smart people. We'll dictate what people can and cannot vote for. I'm sorry, but that's no way.
Yeah. It's very problematic of the NEC to act in the way they are, and they're killing off the membership. Like, again, I said this in the stream we did the other night about certain people in YI saying like, oh, if Batten wins, it's going to make people leave in their droves, and I'm just like, people are leaving in their droves because Batten isn't even allowed to stand, and you really concerned about him like winning? Like, the fact that he is not even allowed to run, people are leaving. And that should really tell you about like how the actual membership feels about Batten. Like, so you can take your little opinionated fucking views and fuck off, quite frankly.
Well, if we don't focus on the thing Batten's willing to talk about, then we've got nothing else to talk about. We're not the main party of Brexit now. That's been said, and we have to accept that. We're just not. So we need to focus on the things why the members are with the party, essentially. And what the NEC's done is they've put themselves at ideological odds with the heart of the membership.
And that's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah. Did you have anything to add on that, Matthew?
No, not really, because I don't want to upset them. Because I'm going to be in a
You've
room
already,
tomorrow.
yeah,
And so
Matthew,
possibly,
you've already compared them to The Walking Dead, so.
well, yeah, I suppose so. I mean,
I'm not going to clip that as well.
Like, we're gonna have to come up with like a poll and be like, which insult is worse, Stasi bastards or the undead?
Yeah. Or Stalinist wankers. Don't forget that one.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do, really. No.
I'll tell you what. If you face one way, I'll have my back to you, and then we can have a 360-degree view. So if any of the NEC members start charging at us, I'll bring, I don't know, my manifesto or whatever. I can whip them away. If you roll one of those UKIP manifestos into a tight type magazine,
Yeah.
you can really actually do some damage there.
Yeah.
So that could be a good weapon against them.
But
this is not creating a good image for fucking UKIP conferences where the people going are giving advice on how to survive a UKIP conference.
Well, I'll tell you what. Basically, tomorrow we're going to be at an event where probably about 90% of it hates Damien and about 70% of it hates me. So, it's going to be fantastic. I can't wait.
Enjoy the stream. This is going to be like the Last Supper for us, you know. Mind you, saying that, we should get someone to test our food at the gala dinner. Just to make sure. I'll get someone else to just take a spoonful like they do in prison. Okay,
mate, it's gonna be some point next week, and all I'm gonna see across like social media is just a meme of Damien on a fucking crucifix being crucified.
But the thing is, I'm more than happy to die for this cause. Wait, die for this cause? That is quite extreme.
Yeah, darling, man. Like I'm saying, I'm painting a very good image of the conference.
Well, if anything, at least people think we're entertaining. You know?
Yeah, because the thing on the right here, and it's just plain to see. This is a matter of democracy, and so and the thing is, I know the majority of people in UKIP agree with us, so. They can go fuck themselves.
I'm looking forward over the weekend to there being a viral leak of just like two guys like in the UKIP conference. They're back to back, got fucking rolled up manifestos in their hand. They're just like
we can use that Gerard Batten principles we stand for one.
Yeah. But I tell you what, I might have to do a little video diary for the Kipper stream during the Southeast Conference, just to give people updates on this thing. For anyone who's not aware, we have the Southeast Conference for UKIP coming up soon, and it's the only hustings between the candidates, which is also a conference. So it's going to be the biggest hustings, and it's basically the biggest event in UKIP. Besides the next conference, the next party conference, which is, I believe, like
September, I think.
September. That's going to be in Wales, but it's going to be interesting to say the least.
This weekend is going to be spicy, and if shit doesn't kick off this weekend, like again, I really shouldn't be saying this because I'm making it sound way worse. But when I say shit kicks off, I'm talking about like spicy stuff being said, and not talking about people getting stabbed.
Well, give it time.
Yeah, I'm just being hyperbolic, honestly. But
Piers Walcott coming in with the headbutt.
Yeah, like if some tension doesn't get released this weekend, is essentially what I'm trying to say. Like the national conference is going to be a lot bigger.
Hang on, is Gerard Batten going to be there? Like, have we thought about this?
That is a good question.
I do not know. That's going to be like cutting. That's going to be like cutting through freezing fog. That's going to be.
Well, he has every right to be there. So
I don't think he will. But could you imagine if Batten turned up?
Yeah. Okay. This should be interesting. Okay, you know what? At the risk of indulging ourselves too much and not being entertaining for our viewers, maybe we should wrap up this stream.
Yeah.
But
I'm beginning to regret some of the things I'm saying. I'm getting a bit concerned.
Well, you're at a distance. They have to come in and get you. We're gonna go straight into the lion's den.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll have my manifesto wrapped up nice and tight for self-defense.
Mate, one of you's gonna have to like wrap out real tight and then get one of those Amazon jungle fucking dart things that they like spit at people.
Yeah, and just in case any NEC members are watching, I do know karate. Okay, so but I just want to put that out there.
Yeah, like, at the end of the day, we're just being hyperbolic. Like we're just like kind of putting some humor to the tension that's out there. You know, like just don't take us too seriously.
We are joking.
The thing, just to wrap this up, we love UKIP, and this is why we don't want the NEC to make these stupid decisions and bring the party into disrepute, essentially. So we are trying to save UKIP here. So it's our duty, in a sense, to criticise the NEC. So hang in there. Watch this space, because I have a feeling we're going to get some movement on this.
We love UKIP
But,
so much that we're willing to tell the higher ups you're fucking idiots.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, all right, let's wrap the stream up,
All right.
guys. Good to talk to you, but stay on the line.